I'd always wondered about the secret meeting that took place between Steve and my grandparents sometime in 1978. It was the only time in 13 years that they met. And then one day, I found a tape labeled Steve in my grandfather's handwriting.
This is a continuation of my writing about Steve. Word was brought to us in person by one of Steve's former housemates that he would be able to make a rendezvous with Sylvia and me within the next month or so.
So meeting with them was problematic, hugely problematic from a security point of view. First of all, just on its face, we had no idea to what extent the FBI was actively trying to find me.
The first selectman told me that the FBI had informed him that my telephone was tapped.
So the idea of meeting with my parents was scary and freaked my friends out, freaked me out. So what we eventually did is I pushed on the question, and we agreed that it would happen, and we set it up through one of the few people that my parents really trusted, Gary Bello.
Not long after, I received a note that I was to call Gary Bello in Boston, and I did so at an outside public phone. He told me that he would like to meet me at the New London Railroad station the next day around noon with Sylvia.
We decided to meet on the end of Long Island, which allowed me to take a train from New York City to Orient Point, and allowed them to come to Orient Point via the ferry from New London.
At the rendezvous, Gary indicated that he had arrived by car and would drive us. He followed a very circuitous and roundabout route in downtown New London for 10 minutes, as he explained, to throw off any possibility of our being trailed. Eventually, we arrived at the terminus of the Long Island ferry. He warned me to stay as much out of sight as possible while he went to get tickets. We enjoyed the 2-hour ferry ride across Long Island Sound, hardly daring to believe that we might soon see Steve. After an hour's drive, we pulled in at a motel where a separate cabin had been reserved for us. In the cabin, we sat expectantly, waiting for Steve's arrival. Finally, there was a knock at the door, and Steve stepped in out of the darkness.
So we met for about 4 hours, and it was, as you can imagine, it was pretty emotional. One of the things I wanted to do was to tell my mother that I would have connected with her earlier, but because of Daddy's active right after events happened in 1971 and afterwards and so forth, everybody just felt it wasn't safe.
For 2 hours, we carried on a somewhat desultory conversation about family matters and events at home with a sense of constraint, excitement, and tedium.
I remember they had 2 little stones that I'd picked up on a beach somewhere, I think in France. And I gave one to each of them just as something concrete that they could kind of hold on to. So when they woke up in the morning, they would know it had not all just been a dream or something that disappeared.
After 2 hours, he rose and said he had to go, and after a tearful goodbye, we saw him go out the door and disappear in the darkness.